$1,400 fourth stimulus check specifically focused on Social Security, including retirement, disability, SSDI, survivors, SSI, VA, RRB, low income, no income, seniors, older adults, and of course, people with disabilities. I have all the details and what you need to know right here in the video, so let's get right into it. All right, now this continues to be a very important topic as we are watching the United States economy crumble right before our eyes. As we know, when the United States economy contracts, they print up money and they send it out in the form of checks, otherwise known as stimulus checks. We've seen this through history, we've seen this through example, and we know that this time it's not going to be any different, so that's exactly what I want to talk about here in the video. Let's get into it and discuss all the details and, of course, all the moving parts that we need to understand with a potential another check. Let's get right into it. However, really fast before we do, thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe by hitting the button right down below the video. As I am your one and only daily advocate, I am here for you right by your side every single day, watching all these new announcements and all the information hitting the wire, doing all the necessary research and breaking it all down into these short videos, which I deliver a couple times throughout the day so that you can stay updated with what is actually going on right now as things continue to change very, very rapidly. We're continuously getting new announcements out of the administration, the president, lawmakers in Congress, and of course everything that Congress is either working on, talking about, and or introducing with all the bills and packages, proposals and amendments, reform to very important fixed income benefits, and of course anything in regards to money, checks, programs, stimulus, raises to benefits, or anything else like that. Of course, I'm bringing it to you in these short videos each and every day. So again, please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. I'll continue to be here for you right by your side every single day to keep you updated and of course to help you out in any way that I possibly can. That's my dedication and my commitment, and as always, I'm sticking to it. All right, let's jump into it and talk about what's going on here. So this continues to also be a very popular question that I see showing up down below in the comment section on a very regular basis. A lot of you here in the community are reaching out saying, are we getting another check? If so, when are we going to get it? Who is going to get it? Who is going to be eligible for it? Are fixed income beneficiaries going to be eligible for it? How much is it going to be? All of these types of questions I continue to see on a very regular basis. So I do want to talk about all the details as far as a $1,400 fourth stimulus check, where we currently stand, what's going on here, and what is the current economic situation going to mean in regards to another check. All of this is very highly correlated. All of this is very important and exactly what I want to focus on here in the video. Now, one more quick side note before we get into all the details. I want to make it very clear from the very start so that there's no confusion about this. As of right now, a fourth stimulus check has not been approved, okay? So I know that most of you here in the community know this, but again, I just want to make that very clear so that there's no confusion and so that I'm not accused of saying a check is on the way. I'm not saying that, but I'm also not saying that a check won't be approved at some point either, because this economy is contracting in a big, big way. As a result of what the Federal Reserve is doing, it is contracting very hard right now. And we know that when situations like this play out, we've seen it time and time again throughout history. We see that every time the economy contracts at the rate that it is right now, eventually it'll bottom out when the Federal Reserve decides to start printing a bunch of money, hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars, and they plow it into the economy. We've seen it happen time and time again, and this time will likely be no different than all the others. There's no reason they would be any different. So let me talk you through the details and let you know what's going on and what I'm watching very closely right now. So number one, we need to watch the Federal Reserve very, very closely. I know that many of you here in the community think, I don't know what that means. I don't really care. Why are we watching the Federal Reserve? What does that even mean? The Federal Reserve is the central bank. In other words, they have the authority over raising interest rates, lowering interest rates, printing money. Yes, the Federal Reserve has a printing press. Maybe not like a physical printing press, but they do have the ability to print money. In other words, changing digits on a computer. And when Congress comes out and says, hey, print us up $1 trillion, the Federal Reserve says, you got it. How fast do you want it? And they print it up and they get it out to Congress, okay? So the Federal Reserve has the ability to do this. They can manufacture money whenever they want. Not a bad position to be in, right? How cool would it be to have that job? Well, honestly, it wouldn't be that cool to have that job because honestly, even though they print up money, they don't get any of it. Well, That's what we think anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if they get some of it. But the fact of the matter is they get to print money at their leisure, right? Well, as a result of this, we know that when the economy contracts very aggressively, like what's happening right now, the economy is going down and it's going down fast, right? Well, as a result of this, this is putting the economy into a very severe contraction. Basically, a big recession is on our doorstep right now, right? So a lot of people have been talking about this for a while. In fact, I've been covering this for about a year now. We've been watching this and saying, it's happening, it's coming fast, and it's going to be an ugly picture when this whole thing plays out. Well, all of this is manufactured by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is raising interest rates very aggressively, which is contracting the economy. This is not a natural contraction. This is a manufactured. This is a self-inflicted contraction. Why? Because they're trying to bring down inflation. It's not working that well. Inflation is still very, very high right now, but their efforts are trying to bring down this inflation by raising interest rates and trying to make people less, compelled to go out and borrow money or to spend money. When they raise interest rates, basically what that is, it's a kind of like a passive way to get us, the consumer, and of course businesses, to stop spending money. That's what they want us to do. By raising interest rates, they're essentially telling us, please, stop spending money. That's all we want you to do. Stop spending, start saving. That's what they want us to do. So by raising the interest rates, they're making it less appealing to spend money and more appealing to save money. Have you ever looked at your account? If you have a savings account or maybe a checking account recently, maybe you're getting like 1% interest now, or maybe like 1%, or depending on where you're banking, if you have one of these banks that offers, an interest rate on it, you might be getting upwards of 2% interest now. I know, crazy, right? When was the last time that you saw a 2% interest rate on a checking or savings account? Years and years and years ago. But now today, you might actually be seeing that if you have one of these accounts. Why? Because again, the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates and they're making it more appealing to save money. That's what they want us to do right now, is to save money. And as a result of this, less money going out into the economy, less money being spent on goods and services means the economy is going to contract even harder, right? All right, so long story short, I'm watching the Federal Reserve very, very closely right now, because if they continue with their aggressive interest rate policies like they've been doing here over the last several meetings that they've had for the last several months here, this economy will continue to crash and burn even harder. Now, again, we don't want that to happen, but if you're in the camp that you want another stimulus check, you're probably begging for this right now, because the harder that this thing crashes and burns, the higher the likelihood of more checks, and the higher the likelihood that the checks will be bigger, okay? Now, again, I'm not saying that any of this is a good thing, as in the economy contracting, but if you're, like I said, in the camp of wanting another stimulus check, you probably want to watch this stuff very closely, because this is what gives birth to additional stimulus checks. We've seen it every single time over the last several recessions, over the last 20 plus years. So this time would be probably no different, okay? So that's what I'm watching very closely. Also, next, I want to point this out as well. As the Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates and contracts this economy purposefully, as a result of that, we are losing a lot of jobs right now. There's a lot of people that are losing their jobs because large corporations, medium corporations, and small businesses are contracting. The reason for that is they're looking out onto the horizon and they're saying, I see some pretty bad storm clouds coming. I'm going to go ahead and let some people go to conserve capital, to start making sure that they have enough capital to ride out this storm, right? So that's the reason that they do this. When we see a contraction like this coming, and when we see a large storm cloud, in other words, a recession, a major contraction, raising interest rates, things like this on the horizon, businesses start letting go a lot of people, hundreds, even thousands of people, depending on the corporation and the size of the business, things like that, because they need to save capital. They start to look at their payroll and they say, wait, we have 1,000 too many people. We got to get rid of some people, because payroll is the number one expense for the vast majority of businesses, right? So as a result of that, they look at their balance sheets and they look at the payroll and they say, okay, we got to get rid of some people here, because this storm is going to be a bad one. We need to conserve capital. We need to make it through this storm and make it out the other side, rather than going belly up, as they say, right? Otherwise known as bankrupt. And that's what's happening to some businesses right now as well. They can't weather it out, and they're just simply closing the doors and saying, that's it, we give up, we're done, we're over with this thing, okay? So it's a tough situation, and there's a lot of people losing their jobs. It's a sad situation, but this is the fact of the matter. And Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, made this very clear a couple months ago. He was out and said, that their interest rate policies and their efforts right now by raising interest rates is going to be painful for businesses and households. He directly told us during one of his press conferences. Actually, I believe it was during the Jackson Hole meetings a couple months ago when they had that meeting. He made it very, very clear. This is going to be painful. It's going to be painful for businesses. It's going to be painful for households. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. We know this, okay? And again, why am I putting such an emphasis on this? Because this is something that Congress watches very closely. This is something that the administration and the president watches closely. This is something that the Federal Reserve is watching closely. As jobs are being lost, as the unemployment rate is rising, this is not a good sign. As these metrics continue to rise, more people losing their jobs, the economy continues to contract even further. Remember this. It's kind of like a big, what's a good analogy? Maybe like a tornado or something. I don't know. Something that circles around anyway. It's like a big circuit, right? So the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, the economy contracts. As the economy contracts, jobs are lost. As jobs are lost, the economy contracts even further because less money is being spent, and it goes round and round and round, like a big old circuit, right? Well, eventually the thing spirals out of control, just like anything that's spinning around. Eventually it's going to lose control and cause a bunch of chaos. Well, that's the same thing that's happening here with this situation. As the economy contracts further because of rising interest rates, the more people are going to lose their jobs. As people lose their jobs, they contract, they spend less money, the economy contracts further. You know what I mean? It goes on and on and on, and then eventually it overshoots where they want it to be, and they say, uh-oh, this economy just fell off a cliff, and we don't have a means to save it. What do we do? Well, then they come out and they say, let's print money. That's what we're going to do. We're going to print a bunch of money. We're going to call it something like quantitative easing or Operation Twist. Or they're going to give it some fancy name like they've done all the other times in the past. Quantitative easing is simply a fancy name of saying printing money. They've done it for years and years and years, otherwise known as QE. If you want to look it up, by all means, you can simply look it up online. You can find a lot of information about it. Quantitative easing, or just simply QE, or back in the days of Ben Bernanke, who was the previous chairman of the Federal Reserve a number of years ago, he brought something in called Operation Twist. Again, twisting up the balance sheet and literally just printing money, okay? That's all it is. Twisting the words to say printing money is what it comes down to. But when all of this happens, that's when they print up a bunch of money, and again, they push it out to individuals. They push it out in the form of checks. They push it out to businesses. They lower the interest rate down to zero or very close to zero and make it very appealing for us, the consumer, as well as businesses to borrow money and yet again bring the economy back. So that's the whole purpose behind all this. It's like a big the ebb and flow of the economy, okay? Picture a mountain range, for example. In the mountains, when you look at the mountains, like you see very high peaks, you see the troughs very low, right? It's the same thing with the economy. Now imagine, I've used this analogy before, but I want to use it again because it's actually a really good analogy. Draw a horizontal line right through the middle of the mountain range, right? Horizontally. Now picture, the Federal Reserve objective is to keep equilibrium. Equilibrium is the horizontal line going right through the middle of a mountain range. Well, the economy peaks out very high, very hot at the very top, just like we did earlier this year. The stock market was very hot. The real estate market was very hot. The job market was very good. All things were working very well, or at least what it looked like on the surface level. Well, then all of a sudden, the Federal Reserve was thinking, hey, inflation is way too hot right now. We are peaked out. We are at the summit of the mountain. We got to take this thing down. Well, they started raising interest rates and bringing this thing down the other side of the mountain. Well, now what happens is the economy goes down, and it levels out at a trough way down in the valley, right? It troughs out, and then what happens is they've overgone to the downside. So then they need to bring it back to try to maintain equilibrium, that horizontal line right through the middle of a mountain range, right? So picturing that. That's what they're trying to do with all this. And as a result of their efforts with this, the economy overheats and it overcools. As they try to, bring the economy back to equilibrium, it overheats too much, goes too high, and when they try to bring it back down, they way overdo it on the downside, and it goes way too low. Same old thing. We've seen it happen time and time again, and this time will be no different. There's no reason that it would be. We've been waiting for something like this for a very long time, a big old global crash, and that's what's happening. This is what's happening right now. We're watching it play out right before our eyes. And the way that they bring us out of this is the Federal Reserve prints money and they send it out. That's what they do. So Long story short, this ended up turning into a big economics lesson, but realistically, you got to understand this stuff because it all comes down to checks. For those of you that are wondering, in the event of another check, what do we need to watch? This is what you got to watch. This is all the stuff that you need to watch. When it comes down to things like COVID, I'm going to be honest with you right now. Yes, maybe they'll give some excuse like, oh, we need to print money because COVID is back. Okay, we could, but realistically, it's not all about that. It's about the economy. Remember, back in early 2020, what caused the economy to crash? Yes, it was COVID. COVID crashed the economy. And what did they do when the economy crashed? When everything was down, when people were out of jobs, when things were locked down, when the economy was like skidding across the bottom, what did they do? They printed $2.2 trillion and they called it the CARES Act, and they sent out a $1,200 stimulus check to 85% of the population. That's what they did. And then again, they did it again in late 2020 with another stimulus package. Another $600 check went out. And then they did it again in early 2021, called the American Rescue Plan, $1.9 trillion printed up and sent out to the people in the form of stimulus checks, as well as businesses and unemployment benefits and all kinds of other money going out for all kinds of projects, right? So same old thing. Same old song and dance, just a different year behind it. So pretty much the situation is the same. So long story short, what it all comes down to, we need to watch the economy. The economy will be the one that indicates the likelihood of another check, how much it's going to be, when it's going to go out, who is going to receive it, and all the other details like that. One more quick side note that I want to say really quickly, and then of course I will let you go, which is, in the event of another check, will fixed income, again, all the fixed income beneficiaries at the beginning of the video that I mentioned, will you be included? Yes, of course you'll be included. There's no reason that you wouldn't be included. You were included for the first three checks, the $1,200, the $600, and the $1,400. There is no reason why you would not be included for a fourth, okay? Now again, I can't guarantee anything because Congress, they always have to write weird language in. They always have to write some kind of weird clauses in, things like that. In the event they write something in that says, maybe you're not included, I highly, highly doubt that. In the event of another check, they want to get that money out to as many people as possible so that we can go out and spend the money. The idea behind the checks is to stimulate the economy, so they give us a little bit of money and they tell us to, hey, go out and spend the money, right? They don't want us to save it. That's not the idea behind stimulus checks. They want us to spend it. That's why it's called a stimulus check or economic impact payment. That's what they're technically called. Why? Because you're impacting the economy with that payment. You get it? It's all the same old thing. Anyway, hope this helps you better understand the situation that's going on right now. Like I said, I'm here for you to break it all down, to help you out in any way that I can, and also help you read between the lines because there's a lot of things that are not being mentioned, and I hope it broke it down for you in this video. Anyway, for those of you here in the community, again, thank you so much for joining me. If you're new or if you haven't done so, please subscribe down below. It's totally free to do so. Share the video with your friends, family, social media, and go back and check out any of the other thousands of videos here on the channel. Until next time, have a good one. Please enjoy your day, and I'll catch you again later.